Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the Banter broadcast. I am Patricia.
And I'm Ian Kane Jr.
So, today we're going to be talking about Avatar for the fourth time. I know it's like we're obsessed with this at this point, but this time around, this is something that we have not expected in the slightest. I don't know about you, Ian, but when I first heard about this announcement, I mean, I was just absolutely surprised. So, I guess we need to go into context for those who are wondering what we're talking about. So, as you guys know, a few months ago, we did talk about how there was going to be a live action Avatar The Last Airbender series on Netflix, and that the creators, Mike and Brian, had left due to creative differences. You can go check that out on episode 2 for more details. And so, we knew that Netflix, when they posted up Avatar The Last Airbender last May, that it gained a massive resurgence. According to an article from Cartoon Brew, it was the number one most streamed animated series on Netflix.
Wow.
Yeah. So not only did a lot of the people who grew up with the show gravitated to it once again, but a new generation of people who had never seen Avatar: The Last Airbender gravitated to it as well. And that had
Yes.
gotten the idea of Mike and Brian launching a new division called Avatar Studios, where they're going to be creating original content spanning the animated series and even make movies based off of the franchise's world. So, what are your thoughts on this?
I was shocked. Um, I had no idea this was coming. When I first saw the report, I thought it was fake. I was like, oh, this is fake. But then I kept seeing it and I started looking at some credible sources, and sure enough, it's real. And I'm thinking to myself, wow,
Yeah.
this could be the breadwinner for Paramount Plus.
Oh,
This
yeah.
right here.
Absolutely.
And it just kind of made me think like I wonder how this is going to affect the live action show coming to Netflix.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting because have you heard about what the live action Netflix series? Have you heard about the updates regarding about that?
I heard one so far, and the one that I heard was that Katara is going to be the oldest sibling
Yes.
in the Netflix show. And to be honest, I get why people are upset about it. To me, I'll have a problem with it if it changes her overall character.
Hmm.
That's what would be my problem, because honestly at times throughout the animated series she did act as the older sibling even though she's not. So I don't have an immediate problem with it. I just am curious to see how it affects her character. That's my
Yes.
main concern.
Yeah, so according to an exclusive article covering the Avatar: The Last Airbender live action series on Netflix called The Illuminati, they discussed on how in this new incarnation of Avatar: The Last Airbender, Katara is going to be 16 and
Yeah.
Sokka is going to be 14 and Aang will still be 12.
12, yeah.
So, how do you think that the age gap is going to affect the relationship between Katara and Aang? Even though that we know that technically Aang is over 112, he's still a 12-year-old and Katara is a 16-year-old.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing that they're kind of hoping that people will pick up on. And so, well, yeah, even though he Aang looks and acts like a 12-year-old, he's really 112, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but this kind of gives me Star Wars Episode One Phantom Menace vibes, kind of when a young Padme first met Anakin when he was just a boy and she seemed to be a teenager. It was kind of weird, but I guess in the galaxy of Star Wars, age isn't as big of a deal. I don't know. Maybe the writers for the show might try to give off those same type of vibes or breadcrumbs, like, hey, age isn't as big of a deal here as it is in our world. So
Hmm. Yeah.
I I don't know. I honestly don't know though.
I don't know either. I mean, we'll have to definitely wait and see what happens. But another thing that was revealed in that article is that we know who the showrunner is going to be. So the showrunner is going to be Albert Kim. He was known for working on shows such as Leverage, Nikita, Sleepy Hollow. So yes, he's going to be the one being the main showrunner for the Netflix series.
Huh. That's an interesting choice. Um, I liked Sleepy Hollow. Um, Not too familiar with Nikita. And what was the first one?
Leverage.
Leverage. I've heard good things about Leverage, but I haven't watched that show either.
Hmm.
So I don't know how this is going to translate. Um, I wish this person success.
Yeah.
Hopefully they get it right. Hopefully uh the Avatar's second interpretation into live action will be at least better than the first. That's hopefully.
You have to screw up big time in order for it to be worse than the first.
Yeah, I mean, I just hope that they can tell a good story with these characters, and you can, not to make this podcast about this upcoming show because we have so much more to discuss, but I just hope that they can take these characters and take the world of Avatar and bring us familiar feelings, bring us to familiar places, but at the same time also do a few things different with these characters than what we've seen before.
Yeah, according
And
to the article,
uh-huh.
as you guys know, the original Avatar: The Last Airbender was split into 3 seasons, or books as they call it, and it had 20 episodes each, and
Yeah.
they were about 24 to 30 minutes long, depending on the length. So this time around, according to what the article says, it says the new Netflix series will feature 10 episodes, with the episodes being an hour long. And it's not
Mm,
necessarily going to be an exact adaptation, which is further evidenced by the original creator exiting, and that is described as a reimagining. So, yeah, we are going to have 10 as opposed to 20. So, one of the major complaints about the Avatar movie, the Last Airbender movie with M. Night Shyamalan, was that they put in
yeah,
too much exposition with not enough time to explain everything.
exactly. Yeah. They try to do too much with such little time.
Yeah.
And 10 episodes per season. And each episode is going to be an hour. So I honestly, I think what'll help them is if they take their time
Hmm.
with each book. So maybe like seasons 1, 2, and 3, or at least 1 and 2 cover book one. Um, if the show goes past 2 seasons, seasons 3 and 4, or 3, 4, 5, yeah, it might have to be 3, 4, 5 with the whole Earth Kingdom story arc,
Yeah.
because that's really complex and intricate, and you have a lot of explaining. And hopefully, book 3, Fire, will be um like 7, 8, 9, or 8 and 9, something like that. Just kind of take your time, flush out this world, because you have a series instead of a film franchise. So
Right, right. Okay, I think that should be enough covering the Netflix series for now. So let's talk about Avatar Studios. So, according to an article from Deadline, Brian Robbins, who is the current president of Nickelodeon and Viacom CBS Kids and Family, he says Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra had grown at least tenfold in popularity since their original run on Nickelodeon. And Ramsey Naito, for those who don't know, she is the president of animation development, and I are incredibly excited to have Mike and Brian's genius work on board to helm a studio devoted to expanding their characters and world into new content and formats for fans everywhere. Creator driven stories and characters have long been the hallmarks of Nickelodeon, and Avatar Studios is a way to give Mike and Brian the resources and runway to open up their imaginations even more and dive deeper into the action and mythology of Avatar as we simultaneously expand upon the world and the world of content available on Paramount Plus and Nickelodeon.
wow. So yeah, I mean, to me, it just sounds like they're finally on board with everything that the creators want to do with this franchise, and hopefully it stays that way.
Yes,
Because
let's hope it, the same thing that happened almost 10 years ago doesn't occur, in which they were given restrictions, especially when they were doing Legend of Korra. We talked about that in
yeah,
the Korra podcast. You can go listen to that. But yeah, I mean, they, because of what happened with Korra, they weren't going to expand the stories of Avatar unless it was in comic book form. But now we have this massive change. I mean, I guess we can credit it to the views on Netflix. As we talked about many times on the show, that streaming services have become the way of the future on dictating on what show is going to be a major hit and which show is not. It's not about the TV ratings or views anymore. It's about the live streams, and it's about the streaming services on how many people are willing to view an episode of a show every single week. And I
Right.
think that as we mentioned before, number one most viewed animated series on a streaming service back in on Netflix in 2020, and we're talking about like beating the ranks of like other shows on streaming services that went up to there, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, and see that's the thing with brands because I mean this franchise has been out since what 2005.
We're talking about 2005.
Yeah, and Korra came out in what 12,
Yeah,
11,
2012. Yeah.
12. Yeah, so these two stories within this whole franchise that are still standing the test of time, and I think what people are starting to realize with Korra particularly is, you know what, we didn't give this show a fair shake the first time around. Let's try it again. And what I believe is happening is people are starting to really appreciate it. And in that, there's even more of a want and need for more things Avatar.
Hmm.
So now there are a whole lot of possibilities, and I believe we'll get into those. But I'm just excited for the possibilities of the stories that can be told.
Yeah. Now, what would you like to see as like one of the first things adapted, either into an animated series or a movie?
An animated movie. Well, okay, so I don't know if this has been cleared up. Are they talking about just animated movies, or are they talking about live action as well?
They're talking about both. They're talking about both series and movies. So I think they're referring for now. It says animated series and movies. So
Okay, yeah, so yeah, because
yeah, nothing live action as far as I know.
I think with what's going on with Netflix and Avatar: The Last Airbender, they should kind of just stick to animation for now.
Hmm.
If the show does terrible, I think they'll be able to kind of squeeze anime or live action back in there. But anyways, um, what I would love to see, I think the first thing is to make an animated movie about Zuko's mom, and that was called The
Ah,
Search,
yeah, The
right?
Search.
The
Yes.
Search. I would love for that to be a animated movie because we were supposed to get that at some point, weren't we?
Yes,
And
we
then
were. So, as you
it,
guys
yeah,
know, I mean, we talked about this in the Korra podcast. So, as you guys know, that Mike and Brian were only given one season of Korra to tell a short mini series, and around that time, they were going to work on The Search. But then the ratings for Legend of Korra season one was blown up through the roof, and Nickelodeon said, "Yeah, we need to make a second season and like right now." And so they canceled The Search and they decided to adapt that into a comic book series. And that would be the beginning of the Avatar and Korra comic book series that is still going on to this day.
yeah. So I would love for it to start where it should have started with The Search because it is a great story
Hmm.
and it adds a lot of character depth to Zuko and Azula and what actually happens to his mother. For those who don't want it spoiled, because I honestly think they will touch on that. We won't say a whole lot, but it's a very good story, and I would love to see it and hear it. Just with the original voice actors um, being able to be in there. I would love for that to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about you? What is one story? I mean, we could always talk about more that we want to see brought to life, or just any character that you want more, screen time with.
Well, we did briefly talk about the comic book series that featured Kyoshi. They just started
Hmm.
like a few months ago. So I think that a lot of people have been debating, if they are going to continue off the Avatar series with focusing on, a different Avatar that isn't Aang or Korra. The biggest request that I've seen a lot of fans talk about is Kyoshi. And
Yeah,
I think it's well deserved. I think Kyoshi's story should be told because it is a pretty sad story.
yeah, and that's my only concern because the story is deep and it deals with real life situations and it's I think the darkest of any Avatar story that I can think of as
Well,
of right now.
I'm not too worried about it considering that it is going to be on a streaming service. If it's going to be on television, then I would agree with you 100%. But I
Mm,
think because of streaming services, they can be able to push the boundaries of what they can present on TV. Like,
Right.
for example, Infinity Train. We talked about this briefly, but Infinity Train only got like 2 seasons, and then around season 3, and now season 4 is going to be exclusively released on HBO Max, and they're able to go more into the depths of it that they couldn't get on Cartoon Network. Another example I can think of on the top of my head is Adventure Time Distant Lands, in which they are expanding the stories of the characters that took place right after the last episodes. Well, with the exception of one of them, which just happened to be a prequel, but there's another one, the second one called Obsidian, where it takes place decades after the last episode of the series, and it delves more into the relationship between Marceline and Princess Bubblegum. And they couldn't do that in Cartoon Network. I mean, that's how Steven Universe got canceled, because of the relationship between Ruby and Sapphire. And they were like, no, we don't want to see, you know, this relationship and them getting married. We don't, no, no, no. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I understand that. My only thing is though, with the audience that Last Airbender and Korra has, it's still, well, you have a mix, but I mean, it could work. Listen, if they do it like the way it's presented in the book or comics, then I'm all for it. I just I just hope that they don't try to use that as an excuse to do so. I guess that's what my main concern is.
Of course.
But yes, I mean, yeah, I would love to see Avatar Kyoshi story brought to life. I would love for that. It's a
That
really
would be
good
great.
story.
That would be really, really good if we could see that. Another thing that I would love to see, and I know that some people are going to be wondering about this as well, but I would like to know about the side characters that are not, the usual Avatar crew. I mean, I think that one that I would like to see is like the creatures. I mean, we would love to know about more of the backstories in some of these creatures, because some of them are really interesting, like Ko the Face Stealer and various others.
Oh yeah, and see, that's another story I would love to see is how Cole the Face Stealer and one of Aang's previous avatars, how that whole thing transpired. I mean, he tells us what happens, but I would love to see how it unfolded and
Oh yeah,
all
Avatar
that.
Taruk. Yeah.
Yeah, Taruk. Yeah, I would love to see that. I mean, there's so much they can really have a whole show about the spirit world and certain spirits that the avatars throughout the years or countless others have come in contact with or something. Or I would like to see kind of a series about the Earth Nation, or not Earth, but Fire Nation, kind of right after the death of Avatar Roku and Sozin. Like,
Mm,
their expansion and we know certain things that have happened. So uh the fall of the air nomads, the various attacks on Boston say, these various fights in the southern and northern water tribe. I would like to see that, kind of like a Rogue One type of thing.
sure.
Not necessarily that the characters have to die, but just like kind of setting up more backstory. I mean, we've heard about it. We even read about a little bit of it, but yeah, because you do bring up a good point, Patricia. Not to be long winded, but I'll be happy getting other avatars, but there are so many more characters that we haven't even touched on,
Yeah.
and I would love to explore those characters.
Yeah, I would love to explore those characters as well. Like, I would love to know, what happened to, maybe the expansion of the Southern Water Tribe. Like, you remember in one of the last episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender, in which you've had Master Paku and some of the members of the Northern Water Tribe going over to the Southern Water Tribe and
Yeah,
expanding it and making it much bigger, just like we saw in Legend of Korra. Like,
right.
I would like to, see more of the relationship between the both of the tribes, or maybe we can have one focusing on Katara, like when maybe like the backstories of their children. Like, I mean, we've heard briefly about them from Tenzin, but with Kaya, where she would say that she used to travel around the world and she used to be rambunctious, and then when Aang died, she had to stay around the Southern Water Tribe and take care of Katara. Or what about Bumi, when he became this military genius? Or
Yeah,
maybe we can see the relationship between um the kids and the parents. I mean, we already know about from backstories that Aang wasn't exactly a good father, but we were only told that. We weren't shown that in like flashbacks or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah, and see, I think for the hardcore Last Airbender fans, that's what they want to see. They'll want to see Aang more in his adult years because we saw glimpses, we saw flashbacks in Korra. I think probably the highlight for many. Not saying this is my favorite part of the first season, even though it's the top three, is when we do see Aang interact with Korra.
Yes.
It was just it gave you or it gave you, excuse me, a warm feeling like, oh man, it's like seeing an old friend, and I think they'll want to see a whole lot of that, which I'm fine for. But I don't want this to be a studio that just strictly focuses on Aang. Kind of like how Star Wars does with the original trilogy, how they tried to milk that, and so much so they bled too much of it, I believe, into the sequel trilogy. I want new stories, and it's cool to go back to the old ones. Just don't make the old ones the vital points, of your studio, if that makes sense.
Oh, of course, of course. So yeah, I was just thinking about the new one. So from what we've seen with the cycle, with Aang, he was a male airbender. For Korra, she was a female waterbender. So that means that the next cycle is going to be a male earthbender. So with the passage between Aang and Korra, we're talking about 70 years, and we went from like ancient Asian locations over to like Republic City, which is akin to like 1920s New York. So
Yeah,
if we were to go like further into the future, like say like I don't
yeah.
know, like 60, 70, 80 years after, like later, and we get to see the new Avatar, like what would you think the setting would be like?
Wow, that's a really good question. I didn't even think about that. Ooh, Patricia, you're on to something. You are on to something. That is interesting. I mean, heck, so 70 years between Aang and Korra. Um, wow. So you would probably think something like the 70s or like 80s or something like that. And
We're
or like,
talking. Maybe we can have like a steampunk kind of situation where it's like a mixture between like modern technology, but keep it more like retro.
and yeah, like industrial. Yeah, I mean, there's that as well. I mean, there you could do so much, kind of go into the future, kind of give off like for example, how there's Batman Beyond, how there could be like the next Avatar, his or her, yeah, his philosophy will be, yeah, I could know the elements, but it's kind of outdated. There's so many things that can like counteract that now. That's somewhat of the old way. There's just so much you could do, and honestly, I would kind of like to see a futuristic Avatar, some like of in like some way, shape, or form, to where not just the current Avatar, but all the other people, they believe that bending the elements is obsolete. You know, that they have technology that can counteract certain things. So
Yeah, that's actually the catalyst for the first arc of Boruto Naruto Next Generations, in which, there's like this new generation of ninjas that grew up after the third ninja war, where peace and tranquility had reigned through the hidden leaf villages for a few decades. And so the kids who are the current ninjas are just saying, what's the point of us being ninjas? Because there's peace in the world. Like, this stuff is obsolete and dated. And there's even one character who actually makes some devices that can be able to utilize, utilize various abilities that you don't even need to use like chakra or hand seals. We did see that briefly in Legend of Korra, in which now non-benders can be able to wield things like electricity and various other
yeah,
elements. So do you think
yeah,
that maybe we'll be able to see more of that?
yeah, and see, that's where I was kind of going, because that aspect of the story for Korra was really interesting to me. That's like, I'm sure for a knight who's been wielding a sword his or her whole life, they're introduced to a firearm, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, whoa, this changes the game,
Yeah.
So I kind of want to see that now. But in the end, it's like, well, there's nothing wrong with the old way. Like, yeah, you could blend the two of them, the old and the new, become something different. Kind of recreate the Avatar in a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like each and every single incarnation of Avatar has had like a different type of enemy. Like in Aang's case, it was the Fire Nation, and it was about like this monarchy trying to take over everything, akin to like, communists or even like Nazis from the past trying to overtake everything, or even the Mongolians. With
Right.
Korra's case, there's a bit of fascism and people's liberties and such like that. So yeah, there was like a fight against like benders versus non-benders. Do we really need the avatar anymore? Trying to let the spirit world integrate with the current world. So yeah, there's a lot of things to build up. It interests me because we've had a lot of correlations happen in our society over the past few years, whether it be with like terrorist attacks or pandemics or riots with people having different opinions about the government. So I don't know if they're gonna Mike and Brian are gonna take similar stories and put that into the incarnations of Avatar, but it definitely does build into a lot of possibilities. And I remember that I was in a live stream during the yeah, I remember this. So I was in a live stream during the 15th anniversary of Avatar: The Last Airbender. This was around the same time that we recorded the first episode of the Banter broadcast with my Leah.
Mm.
And there was my friend Nero talked about what happens if maybe there was an avatar that was a rogue avatar, like somebody who didn't believe in the spirituality of things, like somebody who wanted to go rogue and not save the people, but he had so much power, kind of like a Superman Red Sun situation.
Oh yeah, or like a yeah, and that would be really interesting to where one could kind of make the avatar kind of like an anti-hero or at
Yeah.
times possibly like a villain. I don't know if people would be ready for that. I would love that
Hmm.
because, well, actually, honestly, thinking about it, it shouldn't matter because it'd be a different avatar.
Exactly. It will be a completely
So
different avatar. And it'll
yeah,
be a different
so
time period too.
yeah, so let's not forget Korra technically is the new first avatar because of what happened when she fought Unalaq.
That's right. Yeah,
So
she broke away from the past avatars, and now she started a new chain of different avatars.
right, so who knows what kind of experiences have happened, in between those times. So there's a lot that can happen, yeah, or like maybe there's a way that the avatar can create where there's like two avatars, not like the anti-avatar that we saw with Unlock, but um like a rival or something is born because the avatar has turned into somebody who is not here to save people, but instead who is here to oppress. And like whichever nation that he or she is, born to, if they still have nations, or
Maybe
the
maybe they'll
avatar,
maybe they'll unite it. Maybe they'll unite as one.
yeah, one nation, or even kind of like control the underworld in some way, shape, or form. That would be really interesting. And towards the end, they like the whole series is kind of a redemption arc for them. you know um that would be interesting. There's just so much you could do,
Yeah, you could
so
even
much.
make twin avatars. Like maybe one
Yes.
avatar focuses on like power, and the other one is about spirituality, and maybe they break off at some point.
And yeah, then there's a certain dance that they do, and they fuse with certain earrings that they put on, and they fuse as that. No, I'm just joking, but that would be interesting. Like, and like for them to like kind of become a fully realized avatar, they kind of have to be in balance with nature and the spirit. And then they might even unlock something brand new that we've never seen before, like a higher state of being for the avatar. That would be really interesting.
That would be really interesting for sure. So yeah, I think that that with that discussed, I think that another thing that we probably need to talk about is that some people are going to be wondering about, the correlation between these new, of what Avatar Studios is able to talk about. Because, I mean, as we, showcased in this podcast, that Avatar has this lush world with all of these different characters, and that we can be able to know so much about everybody outside of just the main group. Like maybe we can actually get a side story with the freedom fighters, um,
Yeah.
or maybe we can get a side story with the swamp people or something like that. But yeah, I know that would be kind of weird, but
Yeah, that
that,
that that would be interesting.
or maybe we can find out from the Southern Water Tribe's perspective of fighting in the war, or anything like that. But I think that for the most part, when it comes to, what you can do with the possibilities, I think they're pretty much endless because we have this
Yes.
expansive world. And I think that Nickelodeon's trying to do the same thing with what Disney did with the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Hmm.
I mean, we saw the successes of, the movies and also the series that is coming out. Like a lot of people have been tuning into, WandaVision and have been
Oh
loving that.
yes, 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 yes. Such a good show. Such a good show. Yeah. Honestly, it's smart for them to do this because honestly, I'll be transparent with you. I was not going to get Paramount Plus. I was like, you know what? Yeah, there's a new Rugrats show, new SpongeBob show. I'll leave that to the kids. I'll be okay. Then
Hmm.
they announced this, whole division solely based on the world of Avatar. I'm like, okay, now you have my attention. And I just hope they get quality writers to, to flesh these stories out. Because you can go from one to the whole new Avatar. You could do so much, so
Hmm.
much, so much, so much. Like just like you said, the possibilities are endless. You can kind of have a quote unquote, oh, it won't be a multiverse, if that makes sense. It'll more so be, it would be like you don't have to just stick with one storyline because there are so many characters you can talk about. So, like, for example, for like the Mandalorian, I guess they call it the Filoni verse. There are going to be shows that tie into it. Not every Star Wars show, but there will be shows that like tie into it. Rangers of the New Republic and Ahsoka, and I think another show is going to tie into it. But my whole point is they don't have to do that with Avatar. They can have each show be its own thing, or if they want to, bring in certain characters from different shows into an animated movie or like whatever, then that's fine. They could do whatever. They don't have to follow one formula. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, and that'll be good for them to have that freedom.
Mm. Yeah, I guess that's true. They can be able to play around with different formulas if they, play their cards right. So I think that another thing that a lot of people have been wondering is, like, are they able to get the original cast and crew to reprise their roles? Because I guess we need to talk about this at some point. So the Rugrats reboot. So they
Mm-hmm.
gotten the original crew. They gotten the original cast. They've changed a lot of the crew members, especially they gotten the usual. They've gotten some people who have formerly worked on the show as well as some new ones who grew up with Rugrats, and they changed
Mm-hmm.
the animation style. It's this
Yes.
3D animated look. And so a lot of people have been concerned about, like, are they going to change the art style of Avatar or any of the other incarnations if they were to release them?
Yeah, and to me, I'm kind of surprised that they're concerned about that because with Korra, they had to switch animation studios between season, like during season two.
Yeah, they had to switch over to Studio Perriot because Studio Mir was busy animating other shows such as The Boondocks and Voltron, Legendary Defender, and various others. And then they got back around seasons 3 and 4. So
Right.
depending on who is the one working on the show, it will dictate on how it's going to look and how it's going to be presented. And as for the writers, I mean, a lot of the people who worked on Avatar and Korra, they went off and did other things. I mean, we already talked about Aaron Ehasz and how he's the creator of the Dragon Prince.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who had worked on Avatar went on to work on that and Voltron Legendary Defender.
Right.
So, and we already talked about Dave Filoni is working on the new Clone Wars, and he's going to be working on some other Star Wars stuff at Disney Plus.
Yeah. I don't, I don't know if this is gonna let him slip out for an Avatar project. Maybe like one animated movie just for old time's sake, maybe.
Oh yeah,
But
sure. It reminds me of how Rebecca Sugar, when after working on Adventure Time, she left to work on Steven Universe, and then she came back to write a song for the last episode. So yeah, that could be a possibility that she could come
yeah,
back.
definitely. So I mean, but I don't. But yeah, I mean, hey, if the original writers are more than down to come back, I would love that. But they could be working on other projects, So I don't necessarily know. But going back to the whole changing the style of the animation, I think how they should approach this is kind of how the Matrix and the Dark Knight trilogy did with their little anthology films. Like the Animatrix or Batman Gotham Knight, where you tell various stories with different art studios, and I think they can do that with various titles within Avatar. I believe they can kind of go to different art studios animation studios and say, hey, we're thinking about this style. So I know a lot of people don't like the new, what is it, like the shell style animation, where like it's like a blend of 2D and 3D. I forget what it's called, but I could see a show in the world of Avatar adapting that, or like how some animes nowadays are kind of trying to play with the advances of animation and CG within anime and stuff like that. So I think the more variety of animation studios that they can acquire the services of, the better.
Hmm. Yeah, I think so too. And if anybody actually worked, actually grew up with Avatar and is able to come on by and give some really interesting ideas on the direction of the series, then I'd be all for it too.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, Patricia, because I would love for the creators to give younger writers an opportunity to kind of flesh out these characters some more, or just the world of Avatar.
Yeah, I think that some people were able to appreciate the backstories of some of the characters through the comics, and they weren't written by the creators. I mean, they gave their consensus and they gave their feedback, but they weren't written by Mike and Brian. I mean, the only one that I think that they had a say in what the story was going to be was the Search, which makes a lot of sense because that's what they were working on.
Mm-hmm. As long as they kind of draw the roadmaps for certain characters or like certain stories, and then they give it to like the producers and like other writers and say, hey, you guys come up with a story for these characters. Honestly, I can kind of see them. I know the audience that we have once we tired and we're always talking about Star Wars, but I can see the creators kind of being in the George Lucas type of role, how he was with Clone Wars. He wasn't in charge of every episode, but he gave the story ideas, story treatments for certain arcs. I could see the creators of Avatar doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think so too. So, one thing that I have now, the one thing that I think that Deadline had stated was that the first project that they're doing is an animated theatrical film that is going to be starting production later this year. So, I think that with the fans knowing that this is going to be a thing now, I think that the first thing that they would love to see, if it's going to be a theatrical film, is either going to be the starting point of a new Avatar or one of the stories based off of the comics, like we talked about.
Yeah, I mean, if you had to choose, which direction would you go in? Would you go in with brand new story, or would you go in with going from one of the comic
Hmm. Well,
arcs
I
that
think
we
I think
see?
to I think to now that's actually really interesting because have you seen Invader Zim enter the Florpus?
No, is that on Netflix?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I have to watch it then.
Okay. So Invaders and Enter the Florpus, they were able to adapt some scenes that were in the first volume of the comic book, but they went in a different direction with the story.
Mm-hmm.
I think that maybe, to kind of like warm audiences up, maybe they'll tell something familiar, but kind of tweak it up a bit so that it could actually get the audiences intrigued. I mean, after
Mm-hmm.
all, I know that the hardcore fans have been reading the comic books for a very long time. The comic books that are available on Dark Horse, if you're interested in checking those out.
Yeah, that's correct.
So I know that the fans are going to be they're going to be wanting to see something new because they've already caught up with the comics. But then you have the general audience who didn't even know that the stories actually continued with the original comics. And that's what they've
Yes.
been doing over the past, couple of years, in which if you want to know more stories about what happened to these characters after the show ended, then it's going to be adapted into comic books. My
Yep.
Little Pony Friendship is Magic, Adventure Time, Steven Universe, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They have like comic book adaptations that continue right after the series ended. So
Mm-hmm.
I know that fans are going to be wanting to see maybe news stories because they already caught up with the comics, but then you have the general audience who doesn't even know anything about the
Have
comics.
that they don't have any idea, right?
They have
Right.
no idea. Like, and maybe even some fans of Rocko's Modern Life and Invader Zim didn't even know about the TV movies.
I can almost guarantee that they didn't, because while I'm happy that they were able to get those things done on Netflix, there was barely any advertising. There's barely any promotion for it. So but this is going to be different with Avatar. This is Avatar: The Last Airbender, or this is the world of Avatar. And not to say that those other franchises aren't great in their own right, but Avatar, I think, is one of Nickelodeon's most successful series. As in, just like period. Yeah, you have Rugrats, you have SpongeBob, but I believe Avatar is right up there with those two.
Oh yeah. Now, how do you think that the overall results of something like Rugrats and SpongeBob is going to affect Avatar, considering that we're going to get expanded movies and series on the characters that we've been wanting to know for a long time? And I mean, they are, we talked about the Rugrats reboot, but there's also the fact that SpongeBob is going to be getting a prequel series called Camp Coral, which was hinted
Yeah.
at the third SpongeBob movie. Now, a lot of people have seen the preview of it, and not a lot of people are really excited about it.
Yeah, and see, that's one where I think, okay, SpongeBob is one of those examples of a company milking, a franchise for so long. I mean,
Yeah.
we talked about it during our Cartoon Network versus Nickelodeon podcast, where for a long time, all Nickelodeon had was SpongeBob.
Yeah.
That's all they had, and SpongeBob kept them afloat. So, well, I shouldn't say kept them afloat, but I should say kept them relevant, because
Sure.
I didn't know about any other show or property that they had during that time.
I mean, we
But
we already talked about it during Legend of Korra. We talked about it during the Legend of Korra podcast, that the shows that came out during that time, right, in between Avatar: The Last Airbender and Loud House, you had shows like Mighty Bee, Fanboy and Chum Chum, Breadwinners, Robot and Monster, Pig Goat, Banana Cricket. Well, all those shows. And other than like the Loud House, I mean, and maybe like Korra and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I mean,
yeah, Ninja Turtles, yeah, true.
yeah, but I made the argument that those shows were based off of existing properties, and it
Exactly.
wasn't like an original idea to begin with. Like
Mm-hmm.
Korra is a sequel series to Avatar, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is another continuation of a franchise that's almost 40 years old at this point.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah, I know. So they, Nickelodeon hadn't had anything unique that stood out until the Loud House. So they were struggling for about a decade.
Yeah. So, I mean, SpongeBob was their bread and butter. I mean, you illustrated that perfectly. So I think when I saw Camp Coral, I was like, wait a minute, you're pretty much going to contradict a lot of the stuff that's happened throughout the series, because SpongeBob and Patrick didn't meet Sandy until their adult years. So it's like, how do they know her now in this prequel series? It's just things like that. It's nobody asked for it. You know what I mean? It's like nobody asked for it. Nobody really wanted it. Why did you guys do it? Oh, I know why. To make more money off of SpongeBob.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, I mean, Rugrats. I mean, I don't even know how they're gonna do that, because the animated series, well, the original series, was fitted for the 90s. Are you gonna bring these kids to the 2010s, or excuse me, the 2020s?
I mean, that's exactly what Arlene Klasky wanted from the very beginning. When around 2011 or 12, when was it? No, it was 2016. I remember this because it was the 25th anniversary of Nickelodeon's the Nicktoons' 25th anniversary. So it was 2016.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was 2016, and Arlene Klasky was being interviewed by Entertainment Weekly, discussing about what would you like to see if Rugrats were to come back, because this was around the time when Hey Arnold the Jungle movie was announced that it was going to be coming out. And so she was saying, we need to bring it to the modern era, while other creators, such as Paul Germain, disagreed with it, saying, why would we want to bring it to the modern era? Are we going to have the Rugrats characters, talk about modern things? Are we going to have like, everybody having a cell phone and, like widescreen TVs and that kind of stuff? It's unnecessary. So yeah, it's a bit of debate about like, what time period it should take place in. I mean, I don't think that really matters. I think what matters is that how many more stories can you tell with Rugrats? I mean, Rugrats was
Yeah,
supposed to be like a younger version of the 80s show 30 something, where it focused on a bunch of 30-year-olds and what their lives were like at the time. And so it was
right.
basically separate sides of the story, where it was about a group of babies going through their everyday adventures, and it was about the parents who are new parents who are in their early to mid 30s, having to go through raising a child and everything that all the things that they had to go through, whether it be like Stu trying to make his new invention, or
Yeah,
Drew and Charlotte are being really busy with their companies, or I guess since we saw in the teaser clip that characters such as Dill and Kimmy are not in it, which means they're going back to basics.
yeah, which is interesting because that's what kind of stood out to me. It's like not all the babies are here.
Yeah, so Dill's not in it, Kimmy's not in it, and then other characters that were like friends with the babies. Like if you watch Rugrats preschool days, like Savannah's not in it, Harold's not in it,
Yeah,
and if that means that Kimmy's not there, that means Kira's not there for Chaz to have a second wife.
right.
So they are going back to basics, which I think a lot of fans wanted because, especially the older fans like myself, we didn't really care about the character additions. I mean, it's really hard to have character additions in shows because for a lot of them, it's like, oh, it's just an easy crutch for you to bring fresh blood into a series that's gotten stale, which it's kind of like the opposite of SpongeBob. I mean, Fairly Odd Parents is definitely a case in which, adding in characters to, make things interesting when when your series has gotten stale is a prime example. When they added
Yeah,
Poof, Sparky,
poof. Yeah,
Chloe, and
yeah,
I think, and SpongeBob. I mean, other than just like a few minor characters, they haven't really done that. Which that's another flavor of redundancy. But Avatar, on the other hand, has been a different case in which every time that they
yes.
added in a new character, it's actually been interesting.
Oh, yes, it has. You know, thinking about it, Avatar is kind of like one of those series to where, and we might have touched on this when we talked about Avatar during its 15-year anniversary. Yeah, 15 years. Still
Yeah, I
can't
think we
believe
did talk
it.
about that. Yeah.
To me, Avatar is one of those franchises that kind of stumbled into Nickelodeon. If you were to ask somebody, it feels more like a Cartoon Network type of show, but you can tell Nickelodeon kind of had the censors that it did on it because there were times I'm thinking, ooh, they could have went a little darker with that. But it's Nickelodeon, so it's like one of those franchises where they're kind of blessed to have it, and and they didn't realize how blessed they were at first. And
No, they
now,
weren't.
yeah, and now since it came back to Netflix as well as Korra coming to Netflix, like, oh wow, wow, okay, yeah, let's do this the right way, and I applaud them for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is something that could have been alongside Samurai Jack around the 2000s.
Oh yes, yes, and with Cartoon Network having less restrictions back then, not saying that they didn't have any, but having less restrictions, this would have been something huge. Um, Samurai Jack and Avatar: The Last Airbender, So, but anyways, yeah, you're right. They don't. I don't believe the world of Avatar has those same problems as Rugrats or SpongeBob, and I think whether those other shows will succeed or not, I think their bread and butter will be the world of Avatar, at least when it comes to animated stuff.
Yeah, and that's probably going to be an interesting direction considering that, if they are going to be expanding the world of Avatar, what about the other shows from Nickelodeon? I mean, where are they going to go?
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know what all they plan to bring on. I mean, yeah, they'll have like the classic shows, how like the classic Rugrats and all going on, And see, that's I don't want to. This is kind of a quick little segue. I mean, I just thought of this concept, like um, have these characters as full grown adults, or like just graduating college or something, and then they're all about to go their separate ways. Move to like different parts of the country and like kind of follow certain characters throughout the series or something like that. Kind of see a full grown Tommy Pickles, a full grown Chucky, Angelica, what she's doing, Susie, just that would be more interesting to me. And I know not everybody was on board with All Grown Up. It wasn't terrible. It could have been better, no doubt about it.
There were
but it
some
wasn't
moments that
terrible.
were very awkward looking. Like, if you were to look at the characters that of how they acted, some of them were very strange. Like, the fact that Dill became like this conspiracy nut who believed in aliens and had liked to do weird things. He was definitely following in the footsteps of Carl Foutley from As Told by Ginger.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that series was an idea from a pure place of storytelling, but I think the hires probably got too involved with it and wanted to do something weird. But I think if they just give the original creators, the space, that would be more interesting to me than going back to these characters as babies. While it's so nostalgic and I love it, let's do if you are going to use this franchise, do something else with it. You
Hmm.
know, like I mean, honestly, but with SpongeBob, I don't know what else you can do with SpongeBob.
I
I
don't
really
know
don't.
either. I mean, we've already. I'm sure maybe if you want to expand Bikini Bottom, but that's already been done in a few episodes. And unless you're going to add in some more characters, or any of those kind of situations, then I don't really see it. I mean, if you really want to expand the world of SpongeBob, then you need to focus other than SpongeBob. I think that it doesn't have. I mean, it was never meant to be this expanded world. It was supposed to be like this fun little cartoon about a sponge who works at the Krusty Krab and has his friends and they do jellyfishing and a whole bunch of other things. It wasn't meant to be as long as it is. I mean, it was just supposed to be like, something that was supposed to run for 3 seasons in a movie, but then Nickelodeon saw that this cash cow was just bringing in the dough and they needed something to, expand it. So that's how it turned out. And unfortunately, because SpongeBob is still going for so long, it's like now we can finally do spin-off series. I mean, they're in addition to Camp Coral, they're talking about doing a Squidward spin-off series and a Patrick spin-off series.
Oh my God, Patrick! I don't know how that would work. Squidward, I am all for. I think he's my favorite character because he's the one that has the most sense out of everybody, but yet he's the one that goes through the most mess. I think that is funny. Like I think you would have to focus on other characters. That's the only way, or that's the only direction that I can see. But just like you said, they try to expand on Bikini Bottom, and it was cool for certain things, but how far can you go? Sorry about that. Like, how far can you go with the franchise? Because you've told almost every story that you can tell. They've met King Neptune. They've gone to the surface. They've seen all these sea creatures, rock bottom. All these other things. So I just don't know. I mean, hey, I guess you could talk. Well, no, they've talked about pollution in some other episode. I think I
Yeah, I
remember
think keep Bikini Bottom beautiful. Is that what it is?
something like that. Or hey, I don't know if they've touched on global warming, like how that affects Bikini Bottom. I mean, sure, and I guess one could argue, oh, well, that'll make it too political. I mean, hey, I don't know. I guess they probably wouldn't do that for that simple reason, but Avatar just makes the most sense to me. I mean, maybe you can do more with Danny Phantom, bring that series back and try to expand on that. Or I know they might want to do something with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because I believe Paramount still has their distribution rights as well. Like if I'm not mistaken, right? As far as television and film.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually funny because I always see a similarity to how the treatment of Rugrats and SpongeBob are together. Like when Rugrats came out, it was a massive hit. There was toys, there was action figures, there was the movies, and then SpongeBob came along with its first movie, and then slowly but surely, Rugrats was slowly starting to fade away. It had, the third movie, it had other TV movies, it had the spin-off series, and then it just died out. And now the Loud House is becoming really popular, and a lot of people have been gravitating to that. It already has a spin-off series called La Casa Grandes, and they're going to be having their first movie. And SpongeBob already has a third movie, and it's getting a series of spin-offs that not a lot of people are caring about. So I'm seeing a very similar situation, that's happening with SpongeBob, the same way that it happened to Rugrats so almost 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, they have to realize a show like Rugrats worked best when they were babies, but eventually they're gonna grow up. It's and I don't mean to compare, but it's not like they have the writers that are behind the Toy Story franchise. Because in my personal opinion, each story has been just fantastic. Unless you have writers like that you are confident in, what else can you do? I mean, shows that would make sense would be Rocket Power, because the X Games are still around. Well, not because of COVID, but
Yeah, I
um
get what you're saying, but that's going to be hard for Rocket Power to come back because when it came out at the right time, at the right place. You know, Tony Hawk and
yeah,
Extreme
true.
Games and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I guess maybe. I mean, I know that the X Games are still going on. Tony Hawk is still fairly popular despite his older age, and the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games are getting remasters and people are playing them. So it's
Yeah.
possible, but they definitely do need to tweak the story a little bit because have you seen Rocket Power recently?
No, I haven't. I have to rewatch it.
Yeah, because going back to Rocket Power and looking at the whole extreme edgy 90s thing, it could either be one of two things for newer audiences. It could either be like, oh, this is a time capsule of how things used to be, or it could be really cringy and kind of awkward.
Oh, okay. I think I know. I think I get where you're going with this.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then yeah. I mean, shoot, I don't know. I don't know what Paramount's gonna do.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't even know.
yeah, that's going to be hard because I mean, in addition to Rugrats coming back, I mean, Comedy Central is going to be reviving a lot of their old adult cartoons, and Ren and Stimpy is going to be one of them.
Oh, okay. And see, that's gonna be interesting in itself. Again, if it wasn't for Avatar, I would not be getting this streaming service. I mean, no disrespect to Paramount, but they just don't have anything that's really popping out to me.
Hmm.
It's really not. But then once this Avatar news hit, like, oh, we can get Kyoshi, we can get Roku. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like Roku, but I would love to see more of his story. We got an explanation of what happened to cause the war, but I would love to see him growing up and like him kind of sensing the tension that's building, or just any of the avatars, or just various characters. There's just so much. They need a character and world rich franchise like the Avatar. SpongeBob, for how I used to feel about the show, like in its first 5 to 6 seasons, um, it's not like that. It doesn't have the richness that the world of Avatar does. I mean, I don't know if I can, except for maybe the Ninja Turtles, maybe,
I mean,
but
Ninja Turtles has expanded into so many things. I mean, they've had so many
right,
crossovers. They've crossed over with Batman. They've crossed over with Ghostbusters. I mean,
Power Rangers,
Power
yeah.
Rangers. Yeah, they've they've already have their expansions.
All right, so I don't. That's just the thing. I don't know. Like they're, I mean, they are smart. Viacom / Paramount, they are smart to bring the word of Avatar to the forefront of a lot of what they're doing. Because on another note, Netflix still has deals with some of their properties. Now, granted, Sonic the Hedgehog is a Sega property. When it comes to films, they have Paramount owns the rights, to my knowledge. They could have used Paramount to um, create a show, but that show is going to be on Netflix, so that's out the picture. Um, Obviously, the live action Avatar show that's going to be on Netflix. I feel like I'm missing some other show that's coming to Netflix. That's a Paramount property. I don't know.
I mean, as far as I know, I mean, there's Glitch Text, which is exclusive on Netflix, and then the TV movies of Rocco and Zim are there on Netflix. But as for everything else, they are slowly going to be moving into Paramount Plus.
And yeah, cause see, oh, I guess Paramount Plus will also have stuff about Star Trek, so that'll
Yes.
also be the big draw. Okay, and see, I don't watch Star Trek. I'm not saying it's bad or anything. The episodes that I have watched were really interesting. I just don't like jumping into shows half, or like in the midway point. So they have Star Trek. That's gonna work well for them, and they do have the CBS properties, which is okay, but
Hmm.
I wouldn't rush to get the streaming service for the CBS properties outside of Star Trek. If I'm a Star Trek fan, I would, yeah, then yeah, I'd be for it. But
Hmm.
so Star Trek, Avatar, CBS, maybe the Ninja Turtles. I don't know what they're gonna do, but they need more fuel to really kind of become a serious contender in the game of of the streaming service pond. I don't know. It's just I don't see them catching up to Disney Plus, HBO Max, or Netflix anytime soon. At least
Yeah.
not right now.
Not right now, yeah. They have to pull up something big in order for them to catch up because, Disney Plus. I mean, that came all of a sudden, and Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime. Those were already established streaming services, but then they came out, and then everybody went there. Like anybody who was anybody went there because they had so much content that was available all at once. All the classic Disney movies, the Star Wars movies, the Marvel
Yep.
movies.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
series that hasn't been airing on TV for decades were
Yes.
available. So, yeah, if Paramount Plus really wants to step up, they need to present something that is going to want them to go over to their streaming service. And they're hoping that Avatar would be one that really would gravitate to them.
And see, they're smart. And again, that's their ace in the deck, So I just hope that it all works out. I really do, because you have a huge opportunity to do certain things.
Yeah.
Hey, you can even talk about how Combustion Man's abilities came about. If it's like a secret technique to firebending or something, like his whole bloodline or something like that. He had a daughter, right? He had a daughter that, or someone else like him, and
Yeah, that was
Korra,
featured in Korra, yeah.
or like, so like, was she his daughter, or like was she just another
I think she was just
person that could?
I think she was just another person in that same tribe. So that's another one that you can focus on. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, like this tribe of people can be able to combust energy with their heads. Like, who are they? I mean,
exactly.
we don't even know Combustion Man's name.
Yeah, and that's something I've always been curious about. Or hey, we could have like you could do segments of like meditation with Monk Gyatso or something like that. Like a 5 minute lag meditation episode or something. Get creative. Just think outside the box, or with do stuff with like the guru. Just like whatever. Just expand. I would love to see more stuff with the airbenders though. So yeah, I would love to see more airbenders, and um I guess even though we know a lot about Juan, because Korra had to do a whole lot of digging about what the Avatar is, and all that. More of that era when people would energy bend, all those sorts of things. The possibilities are endless, just like you
Hmm.
said, and I'm excited for it. What is one thing that you do not want to see
One that
come
I
from it?
do not want to see. Oh, that's a good question.
I would
Uh,
say particularly in regards to the world of Avatar.
no more references to for Avatar Day, please. I don't want to know more about that. I think we're done
Oh
with that.
yeah, Avatar. Yeah, that's still my least favorite episode of Airbender.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
I'd rather see more inside story about the Zhangs and the Ganjins than I want to go back to watching an episode of Avatar Day.
yeah,
Yeah, so I don't want that. Um, I don't know. I mean, there's like a lot of characters that I can think of that I would love to get their backstories. Like June, the bounty hunter. Like I would like to know more about her.
oh
And
yeah,
yeah, like she's interesting. And maybe like I don't know. I mean, there's just like so many people that I can think of. But yeah, as for like ones that I don't want, I mean, I don't know. That's really hard to say because a lot of these characters, at least even the minor ones, deserve to get more backstory, like maybe one about Zhang the deserter, like maybe about the battle that eventually led him to disband from the Fire Nation.
yeah. I'm not gonna say I don't want to see this, but at the same time, I kind of don't, because the legendary Mako is dead. And not to say that the voice actor that replaced him for doing Iroh did a bad job. I think
Oh,
he did
Greg,
fine.
yeah, Greg Baldwin.
Yeah, I think he did fine. I would kind of love to see Iroh's journey into the spirit world after he lost his son and he kind of found a new lease on life. I kind of would love to see like maybe just like a little 5 minute clip once a week or something like that of Iroh doing stuff. That would be interesting to me, but at the same time, I kind of don't want to see that, because what are you going to do with his character that's
Mm,
going to be significant? Like what kind of significance would that add? I guess trying to milk certain characters too much. And I
sure.
think Uncle Iroh is kind of one that you can kind of keep him in that Master Yoda stratosphere, where we see him and we love him, but he's not. He might have his moments when he's a main vocal point, but don't have a lot revolve around him, if that makes sense. So
I get it. I get what you're trying to say. Like, you want to
Yeah.
know about the characters and their backstories, but you don't want to know too much because it takes away the mystery and it takes away the interpretation of audiences wanting to know, maybe like give theories on, who these characters are and, what their backstories are. It kind of takes away the fun of it.
Right. And like if you are going, because I mean what makes Yoda so interesting is because we don't know a whole lot about him. We don't even know about his race, where they come from, what their actual name is. And George did that on purpose. He said, no, well, there are some things that the audience doesn't need to know. So maybe if you're gonna bring in a new character, don't, give us way too much, like let some things still be a mystery. Or, just something that wouldn't make sense, like just trying to do too much. Like I know they found a Sky Bison and her baby sometime after book 3, which I loved. That's in the comics. But like a whole, bunch of air nomads that just kind of lived on the edge of the world. Well, I guess that can make sense. Like particularly if they're not violent. I don't know. Just like don't do too much with the characters,
Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Uh-huh. All right. Yeah. So, any final thoughts regarding about this announcement?
I think I've talked for long enough.
Yeah. Same
but
here.
but I'm really curious and excited to see what's gonna happen.
Yeah, same here. And when we do get to know more information about, what Avatar Studios is going to be producing, which, according to what the Deadline article says, it's going to be a theatrical feature film. So let's see where that turns out. All right.
Yes. Final prediction. You think it's The Search, or you think it's something else?
I think it's
If
going to
you
be. I think it's going to be The Search.
Same here.
Yeah. So place your bets, everybody.
Yes, place your bets. Let us know what you think, I guess.
Yeah, let us know. All right. Well, that should be it for this episode. So, Eian, thanks so much for coming on by.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Patricia.
So, yeah, where can people find you at?
They could find me on Twitter at Unashamed Rebel, and they can find me on Instagram at EK_Freedom Fighter.
Okay. And you can find me on Twitter at Patty_B_Miranda. You can check out my podcasts on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, Anchor, all those places. So, yeah, thank you so much for listening, everyone. Let us know about what you would like to see the Avatar Studios cover when it comes to the Avatar The Last Airbender franchise, whether it be with movies or TV shows. Would you like to see new characters, or would you like to focus on the old ones? Would you like to see comic book adaptations, or would you like to go with new, fresh stories? So let us know. That's it. Hope to see you around soon, and take care.
Take care.